Breaking news. Conflict in Ukraine prompted Russian and Central Asian involvement. The Kremlin could be threatened by Western attempts to exert economic influence over the economies of Central Asia. Vladimir Putin has, at least for the time being, managed to make Russia's and Central Asia's relations more or less neutral. Since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, the Kremlin has placed a premium on Central Asia. This is reflected in the foreign policy concept of the Russian Federation and other similar high-level policy documents at the doctrinal level. According to the 2016 concept, the Central Asian states of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan were less important than Antarctica and just a little more important than Southeast Asia. In 2023, the concept was updated to reflect Central Asia's central role in Russia's comprehensive cooperation system, placing it on par with Russia's most reliable ally, Belarus. Russia's policy toward Central Asia is informed by its pursuit of diplomatic, economic, and strategic goals related to the conflict in Ukraine. Politically, it aims to ensure the states in the area remain officially neutral during the conflict. Moscow has not pressured its Central Asian allies to join the conflict on its side or asked them to recognize Russia's annexation of Ukrainian territories. As long as they continue to back Ukraine in its fight against Russia and refuse to join the anti-Russian coalition led by the West, the Kremlin appears to be content. This amiable neutrality was on display during February 2023's visit to Central Asia by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. None of his contacts in the region opposed the Russian invasion, no matter how hard he tried. Foreign Minister of Kazakhstan also stated that Kazakhstan does not feel any threats or risks from the Russian Federation, dismissing Blinken's concerns about the war's impact on the international rules-based order. Central Asia is particularly important to Moscow's economy. In 2022, bilateral business increased by 15%, and even more growth is anticipated in 2023. The departure of Western brands from Russia's retail landscape has created an opportunity for local producers to step in. Some examples include table wines from Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan and clothing from Kyrgyzstan. Russia can also re-export embargoed goods through Central Asia, allowing it to evade international sanctions. Because of the magnitude of the issue, the United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union are considering secondary sanctions against businesses and financial institutions in Central Asia. Moscow has warned regional leaders that the loss of a privileged economic relationship with Russia could outweigh the benefits of complying with Western restrictive measures. The Kremlin insists it is aware of the immense pressure exerted on its Central Asian allies by the West, and it keeps in constant contact with them to find ways to alleviate this pressure while limiting potential negative outcomes. Russia's labor shortages are being alleviated by the influx of migrant workers from Central Asia as the country struggles with population decline and partial military mobilization. Over 89% of the 1.3 million migrant workers who entered Russia in the first quarter of 2023 came from Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. If current trends continue, Russia may set a new record of 5 million labor migrants by the end of the year. The Kremlin sees Central Asia as a key region in which to diversify its energy exports and gain access to global markets outside of the influence of the West. Putin's plan to form a trilateral gas union with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan in 2022 is moving forward. The national oil pipeline operator of Kazakhstan defied Western sanctions in 2023 and committed to shipping large quantities of Russian crude to China over the following decade. Russia, which increased its global nuclear exports by 20% in 2022, now owns 25% of Kazakhstan's massive uranium deposits, guaranteeing a steady supply for decades to come. To finally connect Russia and Central Asia to deep water ports on the Indian Ocean, the Kremlin has committed serious funds to the construction of the North-South International Transport Corridor after nearly 20 years of dithering. At a summit in Moscow in May 2023, the leaders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan gave the project their enthusiastic support. Moscow's goal is to strategically include Central Asia in its multipolar world order. Because of the conflict in Ukraine, it has been able to have productive discussions with Beijing about how to wean the region off of Western influence. In March 2023, the presidents of Russia and China issued a joint statement emphasizing their agreement to strengthen mutual coordination to support Central Asian countries' efforts to ensure their sovereignty and national development, in the face of foreign interference under the guise of democracy promotion. In light of this agreement, the China-Central Asia Summit in May 2023 should be interpreted as naming «colored revolutions» as the most significant threat to regional security, an obvious reference to Washington's efforts to speed up regime change. The Kremlin wholeheartedly agrees. Beijing brushed aside claims from the West and Ukraine that the summit would lead to Moscow's isolation in the region as noises attempting to sow discord between the two countries. According to Russian experts, the forum accommodated Kremlin priorities and helped Moscow achieve its goal of weakening the presence of the United States and the European Union in Central Asia. Despite the backdrop of the conflict in Ukraine, Russia has successfully accomplished its goals in Central Asia. The area has maintained its neutrality, helping the country's sanctioned economy perform reasonably well, and giving it a secure base of operations in the background. All 5 Central Asian leaders chose to attend the Victory Day parade in Moscow on May 9, 2023, despite the potential negative repercussions for their reputations in Ukraine and among Western allies. If the war continues, 2 factors could undermine the Kremlin's success. Central Asian countries might turn their backs on Russia if the West were to impose secondary sanctions on every nation in the region. Kazakhstan could lose as much as $40 billion. Even China couldn't make up for a loss of this magnitude. Even authoritarian governments might have trouble ignoring a widespread backlash from the public. In May 2023, a poll conducted in Kazakhstan found that as a result of the conflict in Ukraine, the views of 1/3 of respondents had shifted negatively toward Russia. The people of Kazakhstan are the most skeptical of Russia, with a December 2022 survey finding that only 58% of respondents found the country to have a «friendly» image. 96%, 79%, and 67% of people in Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan, respectively, said that Russia is a «friendly» country.